I have a story here I want to read. It's called Just a Story of a Little Boy. It has to do with the control of labor and wealth. Several decades ago, at a very young age, I was sitting in a very prominent Orthodox Jewish businessman's office. He only had daughters and he took a liking to me even though I was not Jewish. He even got me the hat and a little black suit and shoes. My dad didn't care. He often worked for him as a project manager and thought it was a phase I was going through. Sometimes on Saturday I would go to the synagogue with him even though I had no idea what they were talking about. He was a great pal, very much older than my father, and spoke with a very thick accent. He always availed himself to answering my questions, no matter how silly the typical little boy would ask, why this or why that, as long as I was not interrupting him when conducting business. One day I asked him, how do I get rich? As at that time he was one of the wealthiest men in Canada. He stated, you buy low and sell high. The next day I asked him, how do you do that? He answered, I have to think about that. I'll get back to you in a couple of days. I asked him why, and he said he would have to explain it in a way I could understand, being a little boy. I said, okay. After a couple of days, I went to see him at his office. I was very happy I was going to be with him all day at all his business meetings. I loved watching him make deals, even though I understood little. At lunch, while eating a kosher pickle, he stated, getting rich by buying low and selling high is about the power of the deal. And to that extent, over others, it has three essential legs, three parts. Number one, free movement of wealth and the ability to conduct business globally. In other words, do business anywhere you want without any hindrance from governments, labor, or labor unions, or anything like that. Number two, free movement of labor within business to produce the required goods to buy or sell. That means, to me, it means you're controlling labor. You have the control of labor. In other words, they do what you want. If they don't do what you want, then they're not there. You don't have unions. Get rid of the unions. Okay, then number three, the absolute or near absolute power over one or two. Means like you're like God. You got the iron fist. That pretty much says it all about what's going on in the world today, not just in this country, but in all countries. It's about controlling the labor force, the poor working man. Because let's face it, without us, you don't have the goods to sell. You can't build the houses. You can't, who do you sell the houses to? So if you control that, you control everything. Now, you don't get that by having a happy, well-fed workforce. You get that by having a hungry workforce. Because a hungry workforce can be controlled by money, the offer of money. Because we all know, we're all the same. We're no different than anybody else. If somebody offers us big money, we'll do anything they want and we'll do it, and that without complaint. That's what all this is. It's all about money. Now, they're not going to jump in to help the injured worker destroy the WCB. If you think that, your elevator doesn't go all the way to the top floor. Because that would be like cutting their own throats. And let's face it, nobody's going to cut their own throat if they got a choice, whether they do it or not. And these people definitely have a choice. They have to keep the WCB the way it is because it keeps the employer, i.e., labor, producing. If you don't keep the businessman happy, he's not going to produce anything, and you're going to go broke. So this is why they don't want to mess with the WCB. This is like the cash cow for the employer, because the employer isn't being done good by the WCB either. Just like the worker, they're being screwed too, because they have to pay premiums to these people. But it doesn't matter what the WCB charges or fines the employer. It still cheaper than what they would have to pay if they were under the tort system. In other words, if you could sue your employer for an accident. It doesn't matter what they have to pay, it's cheaper than that. That's one of the reasons why they won't mess with WCB. They let them get away with doing whatever they want, writing their own laws and doing whatever the hell they want. And that's exactly why they do it. And it's not just here, it's in every country in the world. These G2 summits that they have, what do you think it's about? It's about that. The controlling of the masses by the few. The few super wealthy. And you don't even know who these people are. You wouldn't know them if you met them on the street. But they have more money. They're not like Jimmy Pattison or any of them. They make them look like pikers. They're just people that you know. They're just rich. I'm talking about the super wealthy, the people that really own these big, huge companies and investment people and all that. They have power like you wouldn't believe. And they wouldn't stand by while the government interferes in their little cash cow, the WCB. They wouldn't let you get away with it. So this is why you're not going to get any help out of the government unless you absolute force them to help. Unless you, it pretty near comes to the where you're ready to depose the government type thing. And of course, it's never going to come to that. Or not in my day, anyways. But depends on how old you are. It may come one day, but not in our day, I don't believe. But they'll just keep destroying workers, and they don't care, because, like I told the young fella today, they can convince the employer that a broken arm is going to cost them $300,000 over 30 years. That employer will do anything they want them to do in order to keep that system in place. And they don't follow safety rules. I got friends that are safety people. I've known safety men that come back from up Whistler, working up Whistler, and cursing, saying, I will never work as a CSO first aid man again. Even the boss was calling him an effing no good son of a bitch when he was trying to enforce the safety rules. Know another friend of mine, he was assaulted on the job while he was a safety man, and they got away with it. The WCB would back him up. He does a lot of work for big companies in town here now. And he's a good safety man too. He knows his business. But they're forever trying to coerce him into doing illegal things and signing off when he shouldn't sign off. But he's a CSO, so that makes him legally responsible. But a lot of these idiots do, and they don't realize that they could go to jail if something happens. But they do whatever the employer wants, because that's where their bread is buttered. So they're going to do whatever the employer wants. So that's what we're up against. We're up against that mentality, the rich, the super rich, and the way they think about us people. Well, they don't really realize that it's us poor people, working people, that actually make them rich. And maybe it's about time we started making them think about it, with demonstrations and that, and like I said, picketing and giving out flyers and that kind of thing at their special events where they're trying to make themselves look good. I wasn't really back into this right at the time that day and morning happened, but I wish I had been, because I would have been advocating disrupting that one, because that was nothing but a slap in the face to all the injured workers in the world. Nothing but a sad, pathetic joke. And anybody involved in it should be ashamed of themselves, especially the unions. But anyways, I thought that was a rather interesting story. And that old Jewish fella, he did Josh a great service. He pretty much hit the nail on the head with being wealthy and powerful was all about. And that pretty much is what it's all about, is controlling labor and the buying and selling of goods and gaining more wealth. Doesn't matter that you'll never live to spend it. That's not what it's about. It's about that power. That power to be able to look at that man and say, you are not going